Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Give It a Year with me, Jenny Q. This is my cyber podcast diary where I share thoughts, stories, ideas, creations, contemplations, and reflections. You know, the things that you put in any normal diary. I'm just putting it out in cyberspace in a place where I can share it with you. Before we get into the meat of today's episode, I just want to remind everyone I do have 4 podcast promises I keep every week. They are down in the description, but basically in a nutshell, it's that I will be here every week. It'll be positive, and that I always leave you with a question, and that I always find a silver lining even in the worst of topics. So that's it. So this week, as I'm sure you've noticed with the thumbnail, our episode's topic this week, well, it's called Doped Up. And it's not maybe what you might think. It's not dope like drug dopes. It's an episode where I discuss a little bit about dopamine. So let's bring this music down just a little bit. Oh, there we go. So that we can have a chit chat and discuss things. I really am jumping super fast into this topic today because it's really very prominent in my brain. To do a little shameless self-promotion of my previous episodes, since April, or sorry, not April, that's tomorrow, since February, my last 4 or 5 episodes here have been about a lot of mental health type things, and it's because I've had an accident that has taken me down mentally, and I've been rebuilding since. And it's sort of held my artwork up, and it's held some other things up and whatever. But now, as I work with a counselor and as I move forward and I start to look at things and I understand what's going on a bit better, it's given me a little more insight. And I don't want to say control, but the ability to guide things a bit better. And so in my podcast diary, this is why I'm here. I want to create a space that is positive, but a space where I'm not an expert. I'm going to say that first thing. I am not an expert on this. This is just my understanding, what I've learned, and my experiences. And I want this kind of like a water cooler where this is what I'm experiencing. And if it is a jumping board for you to go and do your own research on dopamine or anything I discuss, whether it's attachment trauma or depression or anxiety or any of those things, then that's fantastic. But if it's just nice to have someone else in the cyberspace where you're like, oh my God, there's someone who understands, then that's great too. So if you're still here and you're curious what I want to talk about with dopamine, I will jump into it. So, dopamine. Why this topic? Why today? 6 days ago, I'm on an app that I use for meditation and I jumped on this app, because a friend introduced it to me, and they introduced it to me in the new year as a mindful practice. And I know that it's very helpful for me. And now that I've been to counseling, I understand why it's very helpful for me, but I'm not going to get into all that. But in this app, they have sometimes what they call challenges. And 6 days ago, I began a dopamine sensitivity reduction challenge. And I love it. I really, really love it. And I really needed it. And now that as I research and I go through this challenge, I'm understanding why. I didn't know a lot about dopamine. I did know that, it's what we all know. It's the feel-good hormone, right? It makes you feel good, and people go and they do things to feel good. But I think sometimes things get oversimplified, and people will tell us that dopamine is bad. It's not that dopamine is bad. It's very natural, actually. It is the neurological, chemical thing in our brain that gets us to seek pleasure. It gets us to seek out things where we feel satisfaction and reward and things that we enjoy, because that's part of being human, right? You want to experience those things. So it motivates procreation, it motivates love, it motivates building things, being creative, being an artist. If you're an artist of any sort, you understand what that's all about. What has happened in our world is we have this amazing, fantastic, and I'm not being sarcastic, wonderful, incredible thing called the internet. And on the internet lives things called social media platforms. And in those social media platforms are amazing, fantastic, awe-inspiring, beautiful, incredible things that we all see and watch. And then there's stuff on the other end of that spectrum where there's things where we're like, oh my God, did you see that? So I'm going to be a little all over the place, but on track here. So what happens is, from what I've been researching in, is like casinos. I mean, this has been known for a long time. The casinos design games and those sort of things so you come back because it's a reward system. It does work, and it's manipulated. The internet and platforms, YouTube and Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and all of those platforms, they all utilize all the same things, and they create this loop. And so what happens is we all get stuck in this loop, and we lose hours, sometimes days, on this thing. So the way the loop works, right? You open your social media, you do something, you click a button, you watch a video, you get a good feeling, or you get a very emotional feeling, or you can be very angry or fearful or scared, but most times it's a happy feeling, right? So you do that. So you open it, then you feel good. And then the dopamine hits you and you're like, oh my God, I feel so good. The dopamine wears off. So then your phone's right there, so you continue to cycle. Or it's so good, you just keep cycling and cycling and cycling. And so your dopamine levels go up and up and up and up, and it feels so good. And then when you don't have it, you kind of have a crash. And I don't know this for a fact, but I don't think dopamine is meant to be hit. I'm doing air quotes like you can see it. Hit as frequently as we get when we're on social media. But it is very satisfying. And I found it very interesting to think about, because there are people who I know who it doesn't really affect them, right? They go, oh, okay, put my Facebook down, that's fine. But then there are people like me where I got sucked in and I didn't quite understand why, but now that I'm figuring out about my trauma and what happened in February, it's because for me, social media, my brain was what do you call that? Predisposed to a dopamine hit, and it not only fed that happiness thing, but because I had depression and anxiety and those kind of things, it feeds that. And not only does it feed it, it feeds you to compare yourself, and it's all of this, like, all of a sudden instant type thing. Now, I'm sure I'm not telling you anything new or different. I'm sure if you're around and you know social media, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I just wanted to throw some interesting things out there, and I just wanted to share just a thought, and then I will let you go. So anyway, dopamine is natural. It is part of the mind. It's part of the way the mind works. It is your reward center, okay? But it also regulates your heart rate and your kidney function. So I thought about that, and it's like true. Like sometimes, like if I'm on my phone for a long time, or I'm doing something that's not a natural dopamine drive type thing, I'll get to that in a sec, I can be sitting there and all of a sudden I can feel my heart racing. And I'm like, I'm not even running, whatever, right? I don't know what it does for kidney function, but apparently it does. And then it makes you feel good, it makes you feel excited, and so you continue on. So I want to first of all put out there that I don't think dopamine's bad. I don't think it's good. I think the good or bad thing is the amount one can stimulate it. And with the technology and the knowledge and the psychology behind platforms like YouTube and TikTok, etc., and it's so accessible, it can become an addictive behavior, and any addictive behavior is not good for you. So, you wake up with your phone, you go to bed with your phone's in your pocket all the time, all that sort of thing, right? So that's the first part of what I wanted to say. The other part of what I wanted to talk about is, well, just what I said. Social media, what it does is it will manipulate us, and it sensationalizes stuff, and it's quick edits, high music, images, whatever, and then it leads into fears and comparison and all those terrible, I guess not terrible, but they are things that you need to consider. And when you do that, so this is what I've learned in the challenge I'm doing. This is one of the things that I've learned, is because so many of us in the Western world, or whoever has access to this technology, what happens is it's like any addiction or any repetitive exposure to things that artificially stimulate. This isn't artificially stimulating us, but using, getting those hits through faster than we really should. What happens is it lowers your sensitivity. And so you need more to feel happy. And so what happens is the things that your melatonin, or not melatonin, oh my gosh, total other end of the spectrum, your dopamine are supposed to make you aware of, that you want to work for and have a goal to go towards, and for the things you enjoy, suddenly do not become as enjoyable as they probably could be or would have been before technology. And I stopped and I thought about this, and it's true. When I was younger, I could go and squish my toes in mud after a rainfall, and I was the happiest kid on the block. I could sit and play with my Play-Doh and squish it in my fingers. I could paint at my table for hours. I could, go for a walk for an hour and a half in a forest and be just happy. Now, I find it very difficult to do anything like that without my phone there, without taking a picture, without putting it out on one of my social media platforms and waiting for people to respond and give me a thumbs up or a heart or a like. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. And then it becomes stressful, because then you branch out into, it's not about pleasure, it's about recognition. And this is my own thought. I don't know if it's original. It probably isn't. But I think what happens is social media gives you a false sense of connection. It gives you a false sense of authority. It gives you a false sense of knowledge. And when you have those things and then they're taken away, you feel kind of isolated and lost, and it's no good. And then the things that should be enjoyable in your life, like a hug or a cup of coffee or just a simple walk, they're just not as enjoyable. And that made me a little bit sad. So I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to do tonight's episode, because as I go through this challenge on this app I'm doing every morning, a lot of it right now is, I'm halfway through, a lot of them are breathing exercises. And that is the cure, for lack of a better word, of a heightened dopamine hit cycle, So, honestly, it's as easy as breathing in, holding it, breathing out. Because dopamine doesn't just hit you when you actually do the thing or see the thing or get the thing. It's an anticipation of the thing. So it's a shift, right? To shift what you're anticipating that you're going to experience, get, receive, that kind of thing. And I think it works a little bit the other way, in anticipation of things you might not want as well. But I don't think as much. Dopamine is all about pleasure and that kind of thing. So these breathing techniques, I think, are very helpful. So the reason I called this episode Doped Up is because since I've been doing these practices and since I've been doing work with my counselor, the core of everything I'm doing to heal my anxieties and my fears is breath. It is breath work. It is taking a break. It is resting. It is relaxing. And I truly believe that this sort of thing is not done as much anymore. I guess there's people who do, but for people who struggle with anxiety and depression and comparison and all those things that I struggle with or have struggled with, and when you have social media to fill that and you don't have to deal with something and it feels good and, you get connections and you get likes and, that's doped up, right? Because what happens is then when you come into real life, what I call real life, you don't feel like you measure up. You don't feel worthy. You don't feel as good or skilled, and that everything takes too long. And that is one of my core struggles right now is I feel like everything takes too long when it, that's part of the journey is learning how to do things. And that's part of the dopamine hit before technology is the thrill and the joy of finishing something, of learning a dance or creating an art piece or listening to music or whatever it is. So dopamine itself is not bad. If you're doped up, I call it doped up. That's probably not an appropriate term, but that's what I call it. As I've been learning to put this pause in front of whatever it is I'm wanting, it is naturally releasing that need for the dopamine hit to be over and over and over and over again to less and less and less. And then the ones that I do have, that what I'm calling are natural hits, like seeing my boyfriend, getting a hug, having a bath, going for a walk, all of those wonderful things, they're bigger, but there's more time in between them, if that makes any sense. I hope I'm making sense, and if this is a topic you're interested in, that I'm offering something new or interesting or a different glimpse on things. So just to recap, your dopamine is a reward system. Social media, I believe, heightens it, and it sort of pushes out the natural rewards and makes them less enjoyable. And if you don't want that, then you can do breathing exercises or other exercises to de-stress or take a break or rest and redirect your own focus. Now, it's self-work. You got to do it. But if you don't want to be doped up, this is my experience of one way of doing it. There's probably other ways. But if you're tired of feeling heightened, if you're tired and you're holding your phone and you know that, oh my gosh, this is too much, I should put my phone down, but you can't, try breathing, try meditation. There's a reason it works. There's a reason it's all around. Don't worry about missing out. I'm learning that too. Trust me, as I try and get my artwork and my workshops out there, I do use social media, and I think that's an interesting thing that you have to remember too. There is a balance. You can't cut out technology and social media because it is how the world connects in one way and functions in another, and it's a tricky balance. So you just, as I move forward, I'm realizing I'm working more on stuff at my desk in real time than I was. I was putting a lot of stuff on social media, hoping that would get me clients and customers and whatever. So now I'm revisiting it with getting my doped down to calm it down, and we'll see how it goes. I'll definitely keep you posted on this. And I want to wrap this up. I don't know if any of this made any sense or if you found any of this interesting. Hopefully I've triggered your dopamine a little bit in in what I've been sharing. I'm sure there's so much to share. As I was preparing to record this episode. I had so much I wanted to share, and as I look at the time, I realize, oh my gosh, we're 20 minutes in, and I really don't like to be too much more than 20 minutes. So I'm going to bring the music back. I'm going to ask the question that I ask every week. Not the same question, but the question for this week. And I'm going to wrap up with my philosophy, and then hopefully, you got some joy and some fun and some reward out of the time you've spent with me today. Okay, let's bring the music back up. I don't want to do it too. There we go. Today's fun music. So, my question regarding being doped up on dopamine through social media is this. Question to take with you. It's a long question today, so be patient. What experience has given you a dopamine hit that was not connected to social media recently? And if you haven't had a hit that wasn't a social media dopamine hit, what would you like to do? What would you like to experience in person that you can touch, taste, smell, feel, listen to in real time without your phone? Unless it's Spotify and it's music for that song, you know. So that's it. Don't worry if you're doped up. You're not the only one. I'm just here letting you know that as someone who was super doped up, you can create a balance. I'm not there yet. I'm in the process, but I'm already noticing a difference, taking the breaks, breathing, and making a cognitive effort, conscious effort to do those things that bring me joy, including offering my workshop, creating art, spending time with my boyfriend, laying in my bed with my fuzzy blanket, listening to music, going for a walk, any and all of those things. Now, before I go, I always like to share my philosophy and my philosophy on how to live a good life. There it is! This is my philosophy on how to live a good life and make a difference in this world. That's what it is. And that is to share your smile, share your love, and share your laughter. Now, you can do all three of those things online, but think of how much more impactful your smile, your love, and your laughter is when you do it with someone face to face in real time. Whether it's a stranger, a friend, a family, or even your pet. So, until next week, please remember that you are incredible, you are amazing, and you have got to share your smile, your love, and your laughter. Because I know I'm gonna. Have a great night, everyone, or day, or morning, whenever you're listening to this. And I'll be back next Tuesday.